Josh, why is Dota 2 in the list of MMOs again? Shaggy, it's because if you didn't watch the video, you will have missed the part where it said the data that is presented is gathered from all of the lists that I can find online. So I think the reason that Dota is listed in the long video of MMORPGs is because in the data that I gathered, it was in the lists that I gathered, which is why I put it on the list, which is why if you actually watch the video, you'd understand that at the very start I say the games included in this list are taken from all of the other lists that I'm effectively collating all the data together of. But I do understand that watching and paying attention to the first 5 minutes of the video is difficult. I mean, I literally explain at the start of the video, hey, just so you guys know, the reason that the games are on the list is because I have done what effectively is a literary review and collated all of the other lists that say what the best MMORPGs are. And the reason I made the video was to point out the stupidity of all of those other lists, where I said, hey guys, the top 10 MMO lists are often, a little bit stupid. The reason they're a little bit stupid is because they include games that aren't necessarily MMORPGs. So if I was to include all of the lists into a massive mega list, this is what it would look like. But I do understand. I know it's the video, yes. So why are you coming in and saying, hey, why is the video showing the data that you explained it would show? I think the title should have contained all that information. That's misleading. I don't. I still have some faith that human beings can watch 5 minutes worth of a video. But then I meet human beings and that very quickly goes away. Shaggy, debated though. Oh, Shaggy, you're so clever. I was just pretending to be a fucking idiot. I'm actually very smart. Shaggy, you have 2 brain cells fighting for 3rd place. I'm enjoying Sunday. Sunday allows me to just say what I want to say to people. 'Twas but a ruse, my friend. I came in here pretending to be absolutely idiotic, but actually, 'tis you who has been tricked. How are we all doing? You seem more mad every day I come here. I've reached level 40 on the warrior. This is going to happen. You were scared of me. I was sweet and soft before. I will still be there, don't worry. Your mum recorded this and now you're on TV forever. Well, I'm glad you've got someone there caring for you. Can we get a gamba on whether or not you'll do a gamba stream? If people pay enough, of course I will. I'd be silly not to. Why would I prioritize the approval of people online that I'm never going to meet over securing a future for my family? Anyone that does that is silly. Of course, if your income relies on the approval of people online that you'll never meet, yeah, keep doing that. But if someone turns around and says, hey man, we'll give you 10 million quid or 10 million pounds if you do a gambling stream, but just so you're aware, people that you won't meet online will start to think less of you, I'll be like, okay, cool. That's me and my dog sorted forever. That's my mum's debt paid off. That's my dad helped out a little bit. I mean, my gran doesn't need anything, but she'd be proud, I'm sure. You think a Ferrari would suit me well? I'm not really a car guy. I don't really care, to be honest. I know that a lot of people have this big thing about cars, but I've just never really been into them. If you're into cars, cool, go for it. But I don't really, it's never really bothered me. What is the difference between quid and pounds? Nothing, they're the same thing. It's like saying $1 and $1. People just dislike WoW because it homogenized the genre. People dislike WoW because it suffered from success. It was so incredibly successful that its constant suffering, hello Dimey, its constant success, has caused the genre to attempt to copy and attempt to codify and attempt to kind of homogenize within its design. That's why people don't like it. They think that it has ruined the genre by being so successful that everything now has to either copy it or try to kill it, which in trying to do so means that we end up with a relatively stagnant genre. But I do also think people often forget how small the MMO genre is. The people not liking WoW because it was successful, popular, is equivalent to edgy teens not liking things that are popular. I think anyone that is willing to comment on a YouTube video saying shill or you sold out is someone who is incapable of seeing something that they disagree with and just moving on from it. Like, I was watching TV when I was in a hotel a few days ago, and Ross Kemp, I don't know if you guys know the actor Ross Kemp? The strong man, the tough guy, Ross Kemp. He was advertising washing powder, and then, I don't know if you guys know the old footballer Peter Crouch. You guys familiar with the work of Peter Crouch? He's now advertising, what was it? He was advertising, washing powder. Again, Ross Kemp and Peter Crouch both advertise washing powder. Very few people are messaging him being like, you sold out. Detergent, that's what he's advertising. Yes, he did play as a striker. for a football team. Have I seen the Christopher Eccleston anti-gambling ad? I haven't, although Christopher Eccleston very much does stick to his principles. Of all the actors, he is one of the guys that is, from what I'm seeing, very principled. Don't get me wrong, the love and admiration of people I will never meet is lovely, but money in the bank account for continuing to do the work that I do actually helps pay the bills. Who is the most respected British actor? Probably, Judi Dench. I would say no one's really got a bad thing to say about Judi Dench. But also, I don't know Judi personally, so I know what she's like. You're going to take my flying license away. Are you? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to take the license straight away. There is nothing wrong with the dad phone case. The dad phone case is fine. How dare you be on your phone while working? I'm sorry. Sorry, this is just how I am. The latest comment on the short that I put out recently is, has Josh gained weight? No. It was just a really badly lit and badly framed short. But also, those are really shitty comments to put online constantly. People don't stay super buff all year round. I'm actually doing pretty well, to be honest. Gained some muscle, dropped some fat, doing okay. Enjoyed a fish and chips yesterday, that was nice. I'm just cultivating mass. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, but no, I'm doing pretty well. It gets a little bit draining when every other comment is just like, hey, have you got fat? Ends up being super annoying. They get you every time, though. Isn't it the attention they want? No, Tiger, these people don't think beyond making a comment originally, and then I comment back on it, which, of course, drives the engagement, which gets me paid more. But even though they do just want some attention from it, you have to understand that it's kind of mentally damaging to have to read that all day. I mean, yeah, of course, it does come with the internet. It comes with the job. If you're on the internet, you are going to be objectified by thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. That's just a thing that's going to happen. Go eat a raw steak. Done. Personal comments are different from old message boards. Yeah, it's not the same to have an inbox full of mean comments or to read 14-year-old trolls' opinions. I mean, potentially, but you still have to read the opinions in the comments, and you still do take these things personally. I can understand why, as creators get larger, and by that I mean audience size, not fat, they stop reading comments. Because as a creator, you want to be in touch with your fan base. You want to be in touch with your viewers. You want to feel there is a connection there. However, as the amount of people that you engage with increases, the chances of that group of people, including just shit people, also increases. Which means, unfortunately, you then have to make a decision. Do you keep yourself open and available, and do you keep that line of connection and communication free for everyone? Or do you, in the process, kind of shut that communication line down because you kind of know that if you keep it open, it's going to become more mentally taxing? That's the question. There is no right or wrong answer to it. It's just what you can personally handle and deal with. But I completely get why, as creators appeal to more people and more people try to contact them, they have to reduce the amount of energy and content that they have, which sucks. How bad are the comments on a scale of 1 to 10 that you read daily? Yeah, let me find out. Let me find out. I mean, reading the YouTube comments is definitely interesting. MMORPG players are the battered housewives of gaming. Keep being a bitch online. Crowdfunded MMOs are just Somali daycares. Your videos are shit. Don't worry, guys. Someone else will start making better videos soon. What went wrong? You stopped putting out content. Just that. But, like, a lot. That was just like the top 5 out of the 1,000 that have been hidden from public view, but I still read them. That's the kind of stuff that's been happening 50 or 60 times daily for the last year. And it ends up being really, really taxing. So, I mean, if we open the latest shorts video that I put up, contractual obligation failed, blink twice if you need help. I remember a while ago you said you would only do this if you need money. I guess now is the time. Is my boy all right? Who is this corporate shill and what have you done with the real Josh? Josh has gained a bit of weight. This is why he suddenly likes WoW. Sell out. How dare you? Are you getting fat? Continue to read more of them on the other video. There's just more. It's just a lot of negativity consistently. And I absolutely understand why. Do the nice comments counteract it? No. And the reason for this is not that I don't appreciate the nice comments, it's that if you go to a restaurant and order 100 plates of food and one of them is full of shit, you are going to remember the one that is full of shit. It's nice to get nice comments, don't get me wrong, but if 100 people walk up to you and go, hey, and then walk across, and one person walks up and goes, hey, and then slaps you in the face, you're going to remember the one that slapped you in the face, even though most people go, yeah, but 99 people didn't slap you in the face. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to remember that, am I? I'm going to remember the shitty experience that we had. The way that I describe it is that negative comments do a tiny amount of psychic chip damage, and the positive ones do not heal. The garbage comments stick with you longer, and part of the job is sifting through the garbage comments. Now, most people say to me, oh, just don't read them. I don't know they're negative until I've read them. And other people say, oh, just don't care about them. I want to be able to care about the people that watch the videos. And I want to be able to feel that I'm at least open and accessible to the people that enjoy the work that I make. The danger and the challenge with that is it would be much easier for me to just step away from engaging with the community. But I think if I did that, I would lose something that I feel is valuable to the community and to me. Can you sort the negative toxic comments via AI? Yeah, YouTube already does that. YouTube does that already. Like if someone could pre-read your comments and remove the super negative ones, I mean, that would be paying someone a lot of money to be able to do that all day, and it wouldn't necessarily be the best use of time. So instead, I'm just going to keep Twitch streaming, and I don't want to be surrounded by sycophants. Like, I don't want it to be a case of you must always praise, you must always be super nice. I think it would just be nice if, instead of praise and negative, there were just sometimes comments. But it's why, whenever I see creators being dogpiled on, even if people say, oh yeah, that person absolutely deserves it, I'm like, yeah, but this is not going to fix anything. This is not going to make that person better. This is just doing damage for the sake of doing damage now. Yeah, everything is either the best or the worst. That's the thing on it. It's one of those things where it is quite extreme. So I do try to not let the negativity in. But part of the job is being exposed to it. And I mean, exposure to anything. Your diet is not just what you eat. Your diet is also what you mentally consume. So sometimes it's important to try and surround yourself with positivity and not let the negativity in. That's the important thing. I think people on the internet sometimes forget, because sometimes what happens is someone will leave a really shitty, personal, aggressive comment on a YouTube video, and I'll even respond to it being like, hey man, I don't know you, you don't know me. Clearly whatever's going on in your life is quite serious. I hope things get better. And people often respond to them, even DMing me on Discord or Twitch or Twitter or whatever they want to do. And people do say, hey, I didn't realize you would read that. I'm really sorry. I'm just having a bad day. I just wanted to vent. I just wanted to kind of lash out. People use YouTube comments as a way of venting. They use YouTube comments as a way of letting out the negative energy and, expressing it all and getting it all out there. I totally get that. But then I have to, try and keep up with the community, which means reading them. And sometimes when you call people out for the negativity, they immediately kind of backtrack and go, really sorry, man, didn't realize that at all. You call people out and say, hey, just so you know, the creators that you comment on can read all this stuff. They get a bit shocked that there is a connection there. People are impressively unaware that they are not necessarily screaming into the void. Because if you're trying to cultivate a community, there is someone on the other side of the void. And the scream is often heard. And hundreds and thousands of people screaming at the same time, it's a bit overwhelming. It's one of the reasons that I have had so many people reach out to me. And this is beautiful that people do this. So many people reach out saying, hey dude, saw you're in this location at this time. If you want to grab a drink, that'd be a lovely thing to do. Or, hey man, if you ever want to just chat or just vent or, just talk, here, you just hit me up. People that I don't know, people that I've never met, people that that they watch my content, they watch Twitch streams, people reach out and say lovely stuff. And that's really kind, and I really appreciate that people do that. But I also need people to understand that I cannot just see a random DM on Twitter offering to talk and immediately think, this is the person I'm going to be safe with. This is the person I'm going to vent to. This is the person I'm going to complain about shit to. This is the person who's going to fully understand. Because most people don't want to do that. They just want to have a YouTuber friend. And how am I to know that the one person that has offered to have a chat with me is going to be the one person that is safe to chat to? Because it could be an absolutely normal, totally decent guy. Is it harder to make friends now you have reached the level of fame? It's harder to get people over a threshold where they don't see me as a persona. There are many people that approach and have no idea who I am, which is great. But there are many people who have a preconceived notion of me, and people are going to hear this and think, oh my god, YouTuber complaining that people want to be his friend. They don't want to be a friend, they want to be a connection. Big difference. You need to take the risk that the person you're trying to connect with is not just going to treat you as a number, as a name, as a famous person to know. So it's much easier to meet more people and connect with more people, but it's much harder to actually connect with people, if that makes sense. Because the connection comes with a level of risk that necessarily wasn't there before. You end up being a commodity instead of a person. It's a strange experience where I get people that walk up to me and people are nervous to chat to me, and people have got a pre-existing kind of relationship with me because they've spent hours with me and I don't know them. And that immediately kind of colors that interaction, if you will. It's one of the reasons that creators end up chatting to other creators, because there's almost like that unspoken understanding of how weird it can be. Was there a moment when I realized that's what was happening? Yeah, whenever people full name you in conversation and constantly name drop you, like I've overheard, people have sent me screenshots of conversations that they've had with other people. And the other people have been like, you can't talk to me like that. I know JoshStrifeHayes. All right? JoshStrifeHayes is on my friends list. You know, JoshStrifeHayes has replied to me. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You don't need to keep constantly full naming someone to name drop the fact that you have that connection. That's weird. That's parasocial. Parasocial is remarkably popular. That's massive ooh energy. I don't think you guys understand how weird and how normal it is for some of these people to do that. I don't mind people sending me messages, but I can't respond because I don't know how normal that person is. Most of you are probably completely normal. One of you out here, statistically, one of you is a definite weirdo. That's cringe. You just post here in chat and Josh reads it, that's enough. And if we ever meet in real life, you can say hi. There we go. But it's a level of social understanding. You were watching earlier on the tube. God damn, you got signal, well done. Caught you reading some of the quest text and was hugely caught off guard. Thank you. Return to me when your mission is complete, and I'll give you my trousers. that was the reward. He said the quest reward was straight up this guy's pants. I'm not even making that up. Hang on, just let me grab this solid chest. You can be, I mean, yeah, the word normal is probably a bit offensive in that context, because it implies abnormal is wrong when it isn't. But I think the best way to describe it is there is a level of social intelligence that is unfortunately quite rare. And I think it's somewhat exacerbated by the nature of online connection being so one-sided. If people are socially aware and socially intelligent, great. And that doesn't mean that you need to be the most amazing extrovert ever. Sometimes it can just mean that you understand that connecting with someone because you are a fan of their work is totally fine. Like, if I meet someone and I watch them on Twitch or I watch their YouTube videos or I'm familiar with their music or their films or TV shows or whatever it is, I can just say, you know, I'm familiar with your work. And then I'll want to just hang out with them as a normal person. As you become exposed creatively to more people, the chance of one of those people just being a bit of a weird person increases. And the thing is, there will be those weird people who hear me say that, and the lesson they will take from that is person whom is successful complains about life. I'm not complaining about the job that I've got or the life that I live. I'm incredibly privileged and very lucky and remarkably happy to have it. But that does not mean that there are not weird moments within it. The boyfriend of a friend of yours gets this treatment often. People talk about her like she's not a person, she's just the girl from the streamer. Yeah, it's very weird. There's a level of celebrity connection which is a bit strange. If you ever bump into me in the street, you'll be like, all right, youth, and walk on like you do with most people. Yeah, if I ever bump into you physically, I'll go, sorry, mate. And then we will continue our day. But there is also a level of you can't complain because you have success. You're not allowed to say anything is wrong or bad or negative because you have stuff that other people don't have. Now, I've, of course, been guilty of this as well. I've said I don't think billionaires should complain too much about the fact that their yacht isn't as fast as their other yacht. But I think there's a little bit of a difference between people who are able to afford literally everything they want in life and people who have weird parasocial fans that constantly try and get their attention. Like, there is a difference. Can I say, hello, I'm a fan, okay, bye. Perfect. Just drop the money in the hat and then walk off. It's the best way to do it. You can complain about anything you want, and people can choose not to care about it. Yeah, that's fine as well. That's totally fine. I mean, yeah, humans can create problems. You can complain. It's cathartic to want to complain. Absolutely. It's cathartic to want to complain. It's cathartic to want to say, no, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that either. But I'm not going to complain about most things. But I will say that the weird things are sometimes... The original question was, is it harder to make friends? It is easier to meet people. It is harder to trust people. That's the best way of saying it. That's probably the best way of saying it. You open yourself up to public scrutiny, and most of the public don't understand that you do actually read and engage with that scrutiny. How much joshing is too much for a day? I'd say 8 hours. If your joshing lasts more than 8 hours, go and see a doctor, and they will high-five you. So easier to meet people, harder to trust people. Trusting is always hard. People have got their own agenda, and because people already have a preconceived notion of you, and a lot of people, especially in the industry, are just ladder climbing, there is also that notion that you aren't sure what motives someone is approaching you with. The older you get, the clearer the line between acquaintance and friend gets. I mean, yeah, people say, are you friends with this person? And there'll be someone I've met like once. I'm like, I don't know. We were civil. We got on. We had a chat. But I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, that's my friend. Like, I know them. Like, I've been very privileged to meet lots of people that work in the voice acting and gaming industry. They're like, oh my God, are you friends with this person? I don't know. I met them. We were civil. We acted like normal, socially available human beings, and then moved on. And I think that's the safe way of doing it. Anyone who isn't actively trying to end your life is your friend. You have a very low bar. Yeah, would I yap to this person if I had a good or bad thing happen? That's a good way of putting it. Am I friends with the voices in my head? Yeah, you know what, actually? Me and that demon get on really well. Turns out my sleep paralysis demon, actually a really chill dude. Since then, much better friends. But you know what, Mega, that's a really good point. It's this idea of instant communication. Do you guys think that if you found something that was 90% correct to whatever connection you were looking for, but you knew that it would take years to find another connection, you'd probably go with the 90% good connection. But now there's a way of immediately having hundreds of connections very, very quickly, which means 90% is no longer good enough. It's no longer about fixing the last bit that's there. It's about finding the thing that's perfect straight away. So I think we've been put into this position where humans have such ease of access to other people. It becomes very easy to end something over something very small. And I think a lot of people have lost the ability to have a level of a connection and compromise and understanding for something different. It's the dating app problem. People have said, oh, I really get on with this person, but I do not like their shoes. I'm like, what are you on about? What the hell are you doing? Oh, I really like this person, but they like this song that I don't like. And? You're ending something over that? God damn. You really are looking for the 100% perfect thing, aren't you? Perfection doesn't exist. People keep re-rolling for 100%. It's why when people say to me, oh, I can't find the perfect MMORPG to play, I'm like, stop looking and just choose one and play it. Just talk to the people in it. Get your friends to try something with you. That's what's going to work. Necroman1, hi Josh, you got fat while playing WoW. Necroman, that's massively insulting. Not appreciated at all. Thanks for coming in and saying that. Also, not true. Also doing remarkably well with the fitness stuff. I'm happy with that. I'm definitely not looking super, fit right now because I'm wearing a relatively loose jumper. But everyone in chat, imagine waking up to messages like that roughly every hour. Imagine opening your phone and either reading YouTube comments or Twitch comments or Instagram messages or Twitch messages, and roughly every hour is someone going, hey, why'd you get fat? And having been fat in life before, don't particularly like it. And that is just an incredibly insulting thing to turn the computer on and say to someone. The only thing that kind of gives me any kind of, I suppose, patience or understanding is that in order to turn your PC on, type that and press enter, you have to be mentally ill. There is no way that a well-adjusted, decent person just does that. The people that say that are remarkably socially inept and mentally unwell. Now, that means that if I'm not going to be bothered by their insults, I don't really need to accept their praise either. Now, of course, it has a psychological effect to be able to read those kind of messages all the time, every day. And while I'm definitely not the fittest I've ever been, I am, thankfully, far from the fattest I've ever been. You could just say you're on a bulk, it's not that deep. Geo, all due respect, shut up. Okay? Geo, I hope that you don't have to deal with the amount of people coming in and saying randomly insulting stuff to you as often as I have to. And if it's not that deep for you, that's great. Don't comment. But no, people are a bit weird. I think, unfortunately, people tend to have this idea that the people on the other side of the internet are just not real. But actually, you are talking to, you know, a regular person. Nowadays, I call people annoying and to leave me alone. I have friends and family, so I don't want to waste my time with someone who's not a positive influence on you. I know that sounds rude or arrogant, but it isn't worth whatever time you have on this earth. Wham, I completely agree. I would refrain from calling someone annoying. I would simply say that, you know, you wouldn't need to say anything negative about them in general. You've got a limited amount of time. You don't need to put a negative spin onto it. You can just say that you don't want to spend time with that person. In principle, I agree with what you are doing. Cutting the people out your life who cause you stress. That's a fine thing to do. Remember, guys, life is short. Spend as much of it as you can arguing with strangers on the internet. And I will remind people again that the only reason that I have Twitter is for marketing. Nothing on Twitter matters. It is entirely a vapid cesspit of crap. If you can, get off Twitter. Use it to connect to your friends. Use it to browse content that brings you joy. Do not let it consume you. You are swimming around in an absolute cesspool. And I guarantee that you will eventually start to reek of shit because of it. People think that they can hang around any kind of vibe and not absorb it. You will. You will absolutely become the amalgamation of the things that you spend your time doing. The people you spend your time with, the books you read, the films you watch. Your diet is not only what you eat. It is absolutely everything that you give any of your focus or attention or time to. And if you consume media that makes you scared, resentful, and hateful, I guarantee that is what you will start to slowly imbue yourself with. Adapt to who you spend time with, man. But at the same time, do not immediately dismiss someone's input or idea simply because you disagree with one thing they say, or even a couple of things they say. We were talking about this earlier. I know so many people that say to me, oh, I stopped watching that YouTuber because they said something I disagreed with. I'm like, okay, was it something that you disagree with out of principle? Was it like a core tenet that you absolutely cannot reconcile? Or was it just something that you know, ultimately it's a small thing? Because if you cease consuming content from people you disagree with, you could risk sinking into an echo chamber yourself. Plus, a broken clock can be right twice a day. Someone that you disagree with in principle could say something that is completely profound to your life, and that works as well. Sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just trolling. Oh, these people are just trolling. No. Sometimes people write out multiple paragraphs on Discord to explain why I'm wrong, why they need me to know that I'm wrong, and exactly why they don't like how I discuss these things online. So I got a message on Discord that just reads, I'd assume your DMs are blocked. Oh, no, Godswell. DMs are open on everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Discord. I hate my mental health. You know, everyone's got full access to me at all the times. Don't worry, it's grading. I'm shaving off bits of myself every day. We're going to see what happens. Here's the message. I've got beef. If you don't like Cyberpunk, that's totally fine. You're entitled to your opinion. And if you're ever open to talking about the game, I'm happy to have that conversation. My issue is the way you talked down to someone who pushed back on why Jackie dies and Panam lives. I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically, oh yeah, Jackie died harder than Panam. How can you be snarky at a time when you play a game where a single dice roll can decide life or death? A crit, a failed save, a bad luck streak. That's the entire system. And on top of that, the situations aren't even comparable. Panam got shot, had a way to heal, and was told to stay in the car. If you talk to her afterwards, you can literally see the scar from where she was hit. Jackie got hit, kept fighting, and made the injury worse because damage is cumulative in situations like this. These aren't the main circumstances. They aren't the same circumstances, and treating them like they are, with sarcasm, is flat out wrong. No hate here. If I saw you, I'd gladly shake your hand and ask you to sit down and talk it out, but it gets under my skin when people get talked down to or shamed for liking something, while your chat cheers you on because you didn't like it. Therefore, you are correct, and anyone who disagrees is a, in brackets, mouth-drooling moron. So I replied, I have literally never said anyone who likes cyberpunk is a mouth-drooling moron, and insinuating that I have is extremely insulting. I do not care if you like something, but when we are discussing it on Twitch, this is a stream of consciousness, and if you disagree with something so hard that you feel the need to send a multiple paragraph Discord message, just go outside. Just look and go, I disagree, and then go and do something else. Says, it's a bit disheartening to see that selfish and negative people usually get more attention than someone who's friendly and restrained. That's because, Taran, unfortunately, this is entertainment. And entertainment is all about drama and conflict. Very little entertainment is fully focused on positivity. There are moments, don't get me wrong. Bob Ross, very positive guy. Steve, the neighborhood, very, very focused, positive, happy, lovely. Sesame Street, generally happy-go-lucky stuff. That's absolutely fine. However, unfortunately, Mr. Rogers, absolutely, there we go. But for the majority of people, entertainment is conflict. Yeah, Steve Owen, the idea of just being positive. Positivity does have a place. Unfortunately, negativity ends up taking far more of our attention than positivity does. Just the way it works. I mean, even in Bob Ross, he would beat the hell out of that brush every day. You know? There was violence. If someone thought that I was belittling people for their opinion on it... Cyberpunk seems to have some really, really obsessed fans. And there is nothing wrong with being obsessed with something. I'm obsessed with a lot of stuff. But there is a level of obsession that causes you to have to tell other people your opinions and your feelings and your ideas based on their opinions of your obsession. You don't need that. It sometimes worries me. You played Cyberpunk once through, it's a really great game. Quicksilver, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I wasn't particularly enamored with it. I thought it was a 6 out of 10 game, hiding behind 10 out of 10 graphics. But I'm not saying that someone's wrong for enjoying it. Oh good, some more hatred on the old YouTube shorts. Generative AI advocate Pinterest, yum yum, slurp slurp the slop. Shame on you for choosing creatively damaging sponsors or pretending like you don't know. This may come as a surprise, but I don't actually follow what Pinterest are up to. People have messaged me going, hey, just so you know, they're doing some shady stuff. I'm like, I'm not online enough to know. I'm spending a lot of time playing WoW. I've not been keeping up with what people are or aren't on about in relation to Pinterest. I sometimes have to forget that working online means that at any moment I am at risk of reading a 14-year-old's opinion. Which, that's quite a scary thought. Yeah, the problem with working online is that you assume that everyone is online all the time. I think the real problem is that everything becomes a purity test. I was talking about this quite a lot yesterday. Everything becomes you can't work with that person because they do this. And at some point you have to kind of agree and be like, you know what, yeah, that is correct. The problem is that once you start to get more and more and more pure, you end up not being able to work with anyone ever, which I think is a bit of a shame. Red Ridge could be faster. No, we're doing this way. Yeah, where's the limit? And everyone's limit's different. And sometimes, if you aren't reliant on outside sources for income, it's very easy to chastise those who are. Fellish Beast, you've said some stuff to people online that I'd never say to someone in person. I look back on it and wonder what broke in your brain. Fellish, first of all, the fact that you're self-reflecting on that is excellent. Well done, that should be commended. I think what broke in your brain is anonymity. Anonymity and untethered emotions. And I'm not saying that you yourself are an unhinged person. I'm saying that if you give a man a mask, he will show you who he truly is. And sometimes there is almost a sick pleasure in being a dick online. There is... I think what it is, people like to experiment with variety in life in relation to who they are and how they treat others. And sometimes they want to do that in what they think is going to be a consequence-free environment, because we're all human. So for those people who go online and send random insults, who spend all their time trolling to ruin someone else's day, who send threatening messages, who in real life would just be like normal guys, normal girls. They do that stuff online because in their mind, it's a consequence-free playground. They don't have to answer for any of the things they're doing, but at least partly they're thinking about doing it. But then occasionally you sit back and you think, you know what, it wasn't consequence-free. It just wasn't consequences that I faced. It was consequences for the mental health of the other person. That's where the consequence comes in. In real life, they can be socially awkward and off-putting. Yeah, that is also a possibility. You get people who aren't good at communicating in real life, who have a lot of bitterness, who have a lot of kind of sourness inside. Because let's be real, let's be really straight with this, let's be really genuine with this. Happy people are not trolling people online. Happy, well-adjusted, socially adept people are not being dicks on the internet. You see someone that's spending their actual valuable limited time just being a dick to random people on the internet, that's an unhappy person. That's a person with some problems. That's a person with insecurities. That's a person with confidence issues. That's a person that's got some stuff going on in their life, and this is how they're dealing with it. People with happy, fulfilled lives, they've got better shit to do. They're off doing their happy, fulfilled lives stuff. Yeah. If you're happy and you're fulfilled and you're content in your life, you're not the one going online to be a dick. You've not got time. So I think sometimes I do need to sit back and remind myself, the people that are spending their time and energy being dicks online are not secure, happy people. What if trolling makes you happy? Then you are deeply sad and insecure. Sorry, but that's just the direct answer. If you derive your pleasure from going online and being a dick, then all response and all respect, you just need to grow the fuck up. Would you not say in some areas you are a dick? Absolutely. I'm not above this. I'm not holier than thou. I'm not better than you in any way. But I do think that there is a level of understanding that you kind of need to at some point say, hey, I'm going to stop being a dick like this. Amusingly, you will... Hang on, what was you going to say? You will run faster when you finally have a mount due to your carrot. Lovely. Streaming chats can breed the same toxicity. Absolutely, that's true. You've got to moderate your chat. You've got to work out what you're doing. You've got to set the baseline of what is and isn't correct. One of the interesting things about streaming, and whenever you have a conversation, is the amount of people that come at you with what about questions. And I'll say something like, people who are trolling online are deeply unhappy people. And someone will come up with, well, what about if I'm trolling the trolls? And someone will come out with you, well, what about I'm saying this and I'm being nasty to someone who themselves is being mean and being nasty? And someone will come on with, well, what about if it's between me and my friends? And I'm like, I don't have to... Yeah, what separates trolling from people getting into a heated debate and saying questionable things? Everyone wants me to, for some reason, codify every single small possible interaction. Josh, you are better at some things. Why say such an obvious lie? Just because I'm better at specific things does not mean that I'm a better person than anybody else. But to loop this back, whenever I say any kind of general statement, there will be people that want me to clarify how that statement works within really specific situations. And the exact answer is, I don't know how that works in every situation. I say people that troll online are unhappy people. What I think I mean by that is, people who sit down at their computer, open up any kind of communication network, whether it's a game, a forum, a chat room, and actively put negativity out into the world, are doing it because they're trying to fulfill something within themselves. They're trying to fill a void. They're trying to gain satisfaction from someone else's response. And then people go, well, what about if I do this? Well, use your own initiative with that. And work out that maybe it doesn't apply to that thing exactly. Sometimes you want to be blunt and condescending in your tone because you don't want to sit and think about how the words carefully. If I was with someone in real life, there's more of a chance you'll pay attention. Absolutely. Fellish, completely true. But then you also have to ask yourself, what is the outcome that you're trying to go for? Are you trying to actually change someone's mind and someone's opinion? Because I think what's also important is that sometimes whenever you have a conversation with someone, you become the champion for that aspect of that conversation. If two people are talking online and these people don't know each other and both of them are taking opposing viewpoints of a situation, each de facto becomes the champion of that viewpoint in the eyes of the other person. And how that person then treats the other person will affect how that other person sees not only that person they're talking to, but also the viewpoint as a whole. If you are talking about idea A or process A, and you are being a dick to the person who is talking about process B, then suddenly the person who is talking about process B is not only going to dislike you, they are then going to dislike process A in generality and everyone that then supports process A as well. That's the problem. Because you are then taking on board the responsibility of representing that standpoint. And if you turn people against you, you turn people against the standpoint. Pip just said typical process A people. Because you're a streamer, no one is in conversation with you physically. People get upset about gaps or micro misrepresentations in your point. Absolutely they do, Clancy. But I think people get upset about misrepresentations within the minutiae of the point, not about the general point. And people want me to clarify the minutiae to make them feel better. Can I fill the void after the late Total Biscuit passed away? Probably not. I don't think anyone, I mean, people used to say, I reminded them of Total Biscuit, which is, of course, a massive honor. And then people said that since I have taken sponsorships from companies, I have betrayed that trust and I'm no longer worthy of that. So I think no one will ever take away or replace what Total Biscuit was able to do. And it's obviously super important that people are able to find whatever content creator they value. But I don't think that it's fair to say that someone replaces someone else when his work will still stand up. And attempting to say, I'm going to replace what you were doing, implies that one person is being, removed from value, when I think what I would rather say is it will be continuing. The amount of pushback that I get whenever I take a sponsorship is, of course, rather intense. The reality is I would rather take a company's money than yours. And the amount of people that want to be given high quality content for free don't seem to understand that the amount of time and risk and input that it takes to generate high quality content isn't easily done for free. And I have pushed back on so many sponsorships from companies that are either gambling or drinking kind of companies, because I don't want those to be the things that I push on the audience. But I need to take some sponsorships to be able to make sure I can cover bills. Oh, the Twitter drama of you accepting money from a big corporation. Yes. Yeah. I think some people, they want high quality work and they want it all for free. Everyone's an artist until rent is due. And I think that there is a culture of all artists must produce work for the love of the production, not for any kind of monetary or financial reward. Someone actually did say to me, someone genuinely left this as a comment on YouTube. They said, if you aren't making enough, don't take a sponsorship. Just go and get a weekend job at McDonald's. That will augment your income and still keep your integrity. And I kind of thought, you don't want me to take a big company's money because you aren't happy knowing that a big company is giving me money. But do you know what would happen if I went to work for McDonald's? A big company would be giving me money for my time. The difference is that my time would be spent creating their product, creating their value, and pushing their agenda, instead of creating my product. Don't take money from a company. That's bad. Instead, go and work for a company. That's good. I don't understand the consistent hatred toward artists getting paid. Because one of the interesting things is that the pushback that I've got the most is not from other artists. It is from people who consume the artwork but don't necessarily want to pay for it. Because most other content creators have absolutely understood where I've been coming from. And while I kind of get the, do it for the love of it mentality, there is a level where you do some stuff for the love of it and you do some stuff to pay the bills. My GamerSupps ads are amazing and hilarious. Yeah, go and buy it. I also find it so weird that people are like, you cannot support this company, and you're telling me on Twitter. You're using Twitter. And I'm not going to get into the whole whataboutism as, oh, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism classic argument. But at some point you do have to admit that you are just choosing the lesser of two evils, and we spoke about this yesterday. You do at some point have to admit that you cannot be 100% perfect. And attempting to be 100% perfect is going to burn you out, and critiquing people for not being 100% perfect is going to make you come across as a bit of a sanctimonious prick. So instead, just ask people to do the best they can. And if someone doesn't necessarily reach 100% of your perfect purity test, just accept that they were never going to anyway. The only thing that devalues a creator who takes a sponsorship when they're reviewing a game, their opinion on the game becomes less trustworthy. Depends what they ask you to do. I've taken sponsorships from games I've reviewed, but one of the things that I make very clear in my contract is that I'm still allowed to say negative things about those games. And there have been 3 games that have been completely comfortable with me doing that. Albion Online, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape. When I said to them, basically, I've spoken to the guys, I'm like, look, I'm going to make a video on your game, that's fine. You're paying me for my time, you're not paying me for my opinion. And of course, if they come along and say, that's fine, we don't want you to say good stuff, we want you to say fair stuff. And Albion Online, RuneScape, and Guild Wars 2 have been totally okay knowing that I'm going to be fair. And I've said bad things about all of those things. And I think that I've been as fair as I could be with those games. People often say, of course you're going to say good stuff, you're praising the game. Sometimes the game is just good. Like, there are flaws for all of them. I think Guild Wars 2 feels weightless in its combat, and I think Guild Wars 2 is far too easy in the lower levels, which makes the overworld feel there's no danger there at all. I feel that RuneScape is super complex to get into as a new player if you're playing RuneScape 3, and I feel that old school RuneScape is trying to attract new players at such a massive speed, it's kind of struggling to keep up with them. And I think that Albion Online there is so much grind in Albion Online. Do I think I've played over 100 MMORPGs? I've downloaded and have experienced the gameplay, but I wouldn't say that I've played any of them to a degree that makes me an expert in all of them. I'd consider myself an expert in, like, 2. And even then, I would have to... If I was to define myself as an expert in Neverwinter, I would have to say that I'm an expert in Neverwinter between the expansions of Sharandar and... or Chandalar and the Dread Ring. Because even then, you can't necessarily be an expert in an MMORPG if it continues to change and evolve. It's hard to know which kind of sponsorship it is, so the safest to assume every sponsored content can't be trusted fully. If you want to assume the worst, then fine. It's draining to assume the worst, but I do get why you do it. The player base does throw a tantrum anytime it bites back. Yeah, that's true. I think, and this is partly on me, and this is not me trying to come across as bitter, I want to come across as genuine. I think the problem is that the MMORPG player base gets so focused and obsessed with their one game. When someone comes along and gets paid to talk about it or gets paid to show it, they are irritated that the person that is being paid is not as deeply enfranchised as they are. Someone asked me if I had to restart my YouTube channel, would I still cover MMORPGs? And I think my honest input with that is I would cover horror games or shorter action games. Because in the 100 hours it would take to make an interesting MMO video, I could have covered 10 horror games. I really like watching like Manly Badass Hero. The fact that he can cover a horror game in 3 or 4 hours, and the same 3 or 4 hours, if put into an MMORPG, would be considered literally nothing, means that I'm taking on a genre that even the most hardcore players will not accept you know anything about unless you've almost passed their test. In the same time that it takes you to put 100 hours in to World of Warcraft, you could have covered every Resident Evil game, at least the mainline ones, and you could have made a video on all of them. And those kind of videos would appeal to far more people than a 100-hour in World of Warcraft video would. But I like World of Warcraft, which is why I keep doing it. And I like MMORPGs, which is why I want to cover the genre. What irritates me sometimes is that the most hardcore enfranchised players of the genre make it difficult to cover. Which is why so many people who don't play MMOs have messaged me and said, hey, I don't play the games, but I like your videos. And the people that do play the games message me and they're like, you haven't actually understood or experienced the game because you haven't played this much. I mean, the truth is, everyone sounds like an expert until they talk to an actual expert. And content creators sound like they know what they're on about up until they talk about something that you know. Then you realize that they're mostly full of shit. Which is why whenever someone asks me a question about something and I don't know, I would hope that my response is, I don't have enough knowledge in that. I straight up do not know. The thing with the MMORPG player base is you will never have enough knowledge to satisfy them. Entertain them? Absolutely. Satisfy them? No. AstroFox, you're a software developer for long, and the opinions streamers have about something like, yeah, absolutely. At some point, I just don't need to have an opinion about everything. The problem is that streamers kind of live or die off publicity, and one of the best ways to get publicity is to have an opinion on everything and hope one of your opinions pops off. Hope one of your opinions gets picked up by a major news site or live stream fail or someone, and hope that they agree with it. But there will be someone that will know way more about anything than I will. I am an expert at general knowledge. But what do you guys think? I mean, how do you see the interaction between streamers and content creators and general culture? Streamers have risen from the niche to the mainstream. Culture is a significant proportion of free time, and Twitch has a large impact on opinion, views, and outrage. It does, because streamer and content creator is now the most desired job. And kids often have no idea what content creation actually means or involves. People want to be famous to do their hobby, absolutely. Kids have said to me, oh, I wish I could just play games all day. And I'm like, dude, same. Absolutely. Vast majority of it is preparation, emails, talking constantly. I say to people, kids say to me, you know, whenever I was chatting about Twitch streaming and YouTube, they're like, oh, I wish I could just sit in a room and play games all day. I'm like, how about sitting in a room talking to people without being able to look at a game all day? And they're like, no, why would I do that? I'm like, because if you can't do that, you can't stream. Adding a game is making it more complicated. Kids also see stuff like the lavish lifestyles, the Lamborghinis, the money, the power, the women, because normally it's young boys wanting this. They see all that kind of stuff. What they don't see is the work that goes on behind it. All that jazz. Because there is a large amount of work behind it. And when they see the lifestyle, I think they often forget that the lifestyle isn't always real. A lot of it is for show. I saw a really sad thing on Reddit earlier today. It was a video of a woman in China with 2 phones, and she was at a concert. And what she was doing was she was holding up one phone and opening up a specific Twitter profile. And then with the other phone, she was taking a picture of that phone. And then she changed the Twitter profile and took a picture, and changed the profile and took a picture, and changed the profile and took a picture. And apparently what she was doing was the people who owned those Twitter profiles were buying the ability from her to make it look like they were at the concert that she was at. Because then they can put those images on their own profile and make it look like they were somewhere they weren't. Because the value in being perceived to be there is more important than the value of actually being there. They were buying the clout of looking like they were somewhere. And honestly, that is depressing. That is super depressing. I know influencers who have rented Ferraris for video shoots. I know influencers who have rented fake private jets that can't actually fly, that just go and sit in them and take pictures to make it look like they're in first class. There's an entire business around doing that. So unfortunately, I think a lot of kids look at the influencer lifestyle and they think it's real. A lot of it is just image. It's fake it till you make it mentality. Put it this way. How many of you have watched cooking channels and noticed that they are often in really, really nice kitchens. Sometimes those kitchens are just green screen backgrounds. Like the kitchen, the thing that they're working on, the table, that's real. But you pay real close attention to the background, especially someone's hair, and you will notice that eventually green screens start to glitch out, which is crazy. It's crazy to see. Where are the kids meant to know it's fake if no one teaches them? Exactly. That is a very good question. How are the kids meant to know it's fake if nobody teaches them? But the kids don't see the fakeness. They just see the fame, the money, the cool stuff. They see all that. Part of me can absolutely understand the animosity toward content creators. Funny how many big streamers sit in a huge empty room, they're in a studio. Yes, without a doubt. It's one of the reasons, I mean, I don't want to ever stop making YouTube videos. I never will stop making YouTube videos. I love doing it. But one thing that I have noticed with YouTube is that it is becoming more about spectacle and less about any kind of integral connection to the audience. And because it's becoming about spectacle, a lot of people are starting to use AI a hell of a lot more than creating and scripting and writing and editing videos. There are still people that do it, but it's very much pushing into the nature of quantity over quality. And because of that, I am wondering what has the most value to the audience. And I think, personally, that human connection is going to become the next big level of luxury. So I love kind of following the trends and working out what's going on in general. And there's a really interesting marketing guy that I watch. I don't agree with everything he ever says, but there's a really interesting dude called Rory Sutherland. If you guys get a chance to watch Rory Sutherland, would definitely advise doing it. One of his discussions is, what is luxury? At this point, what is it? Luxury used to be Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Rolexes, all that jazz. Luxury used to be gold, it used to be wealth, it used to be excess, it used to be big houses. But you can buy that. You can rent that. You can make it look like you've got that when you don't. So you can actually you can portray luxury without having it. So there were two things that have now been established as luxurious in modern society. The first, I've spoken about this before, the first is the ability to be offline. Because luxury is defined by its rarity. If everyone has it, it's not luxurious. You need to work out what everyone can't have, and that suddenly becomes the status symbol, it becomes the thing. So the ability to live an offline life, that is a level of luxury. Not many people can live without checking emails. Not many people can live without checking their social media. Not many people are able to know that they're going to be totally okay without the online kind of nature of stuff. So the ability to be offline is a level of luxury. If you can live offline, if you can live your entire life without ever connecting to the internet, God, you've got some luxurious stuff going on. The other one, believe it or not, is human connection on demand. And by that, I mean this. Have you guys ever called up a call center or a customer service center and had to speak to an AI agent? I've had to. How much money would you pay to never have to deal with an AI agent or a call center waiting time again? How much money would you pay to know that you will always be able to talk to a human directly? You'd be able to walk into your bank and speak to a human straight away. Not be told to call a call center. Talk to a human. You go into a shop, you don't need to do the self-checkout. If you don't want to, you can talk to a person. You walk into anything, you can talk to a person. Some people will pay a lot of money for that, because that now, believe it or not, that's a luxury. The ability to chat to a person directly, that is a luxury. Luxury is now the ability to be offline and the ability to have person-to-person connection. When AI is becoming the thing that businesses push, the thing that businesses don't push becomes the luxury. To link this back to content creators, YouTubers and streamers, kids want to be able to sit in their room and play games all day while chatting to their mates. I get that. I get the vibe. I get the appeal. But you are dealing with a huge amount of people. I know people have been giving you some grief online once that you've been following your content. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's very important. I mean, grief fills up your mind the same way that water fills up a bucket. As long as you can empty it at the end of the night, you can start again the next day. You will always have to deal with a level of grief, but as long as you're able to find a way to reset, to restart, to reevaluate, that's a good way of doing it. The problem with having a larger audience online and the problem with making more popular videos is that you as a content creator then get reduced down to W's and L's. That's all it becomes. Everything you say, either if someone agrees with what you say, it's a W. If someone doesn't agree with what you say, it's an L. That's it. It's a W or an L. And it's what it creates is it creates content creators who just chase the yes or the no. That's all it becomes. You get content creators who chase their chat's approval, and then you get content creators who run away from their chat's disapproval. That's the problem. Because chasing approval of a huge faceless entity means that one of the best things to do is just have safe takes all the time. And trying to push away from disapproval means effectively never challenging what you or the people around you think. There are content creators who will put videos out there, and if those videos don't match the public approval, they'll delete the videos. I've put out 2 videos that I thought had bad takes after people explained them to me, and so I put out videos apologizing for those and explaining where the takes came from and explaining what I'd learned from the experience. Instead of hiding from the fact that I fucked up there, it's right, okay, input from that has been useful and valuable, here's how it's changed. And I think it's important to be able to keep those problems and mistakes up and visible, because that shows that I've learned from them as well. Angry people online want to feel seen. They want to feel valued. They want to feel like they have some kind of input or some kind of power. So whenever someone comes into this stream and insults me, whenever someone comes in and, you know, just gives an edgy take or says something dumb or something offensive or something stupid, let's be real, all right? They are hurting about something. Something in their life's not going great. I don't know them, they don't know me, but something's not going great. In order for them to come into a chat or leave a message on YouTube or send a hateful tweet, something's going wrong. The old saying is that hurt people hurt people. So if someone wants to come into this stream and straight away say, hey, this is what I think, this is what you're doing, yeah, it's a douchebag thing to do. You can't deny that. But at the same time, I then have a choice of what I can do with it. Do I want to take that idea and say, well, I'm going to be an extra douchebag to you, you're hurting, I'm going to say something mean, you're going to hurt even more? Or if I can take that tiny chance to say, okay, cool, if you really think that, then that's a shame, but here's how we're going to try and connect with this. And if you come away from that conversation, put it this way, if they come away from that conversation still hating me and still, you know, wanting to be negative, that's exactly where we started. Nothing's changed. But if they come away from that conversation thinking, you know what, maybe I did just want a little bit of attention, maybe I was just hurting about some stuff, maybe stuff isn't going great, maybe I'm taking it out with that, maybe we need to try and reassess this, then, you know, great, cool. We've changed a slight amount of the world, just a tiny bit of the world. And that's important. People say sometimes it's just to be a troll. I mean, it's an outlet, not necessarily a cry for help. Ronin, healthy, well-adjusted people do not need an outlet to go and troll on. Healthy, happy, well-adjusted, mentally stable people do not necessarily need an online outlet to go and be a dick on, because they understand that that is not necessarily a stable thing to do. People want to troll and try and be funny, that's fine. People want to try and be a dick online, that's because something's going wrong and they're using this as an outlet. So whenever someone comes in being a little bit, you know, a little bit difficult, my first thought is, how's this person hurting? So I do try to at least approach people on a good faith level. Some people do just need a hug, man. They hate the condescending sound of that, but some people just straight up do need a hug. And when people come on and start saying negative stuff and being horrible to you and just jumping in and insulting you, some people are far too comfortable just being behind a screen. But do you know what that means if they're too comfortable being behind a screen? It means they're behind a screen a lot. And it means that they're going to lose that inhuman person-to-person connection. And if someone is behind a screen a lot and they're losing that person-to-person connection, I get a chance to remind them that, hey, just because you're behind a screen doesn't mean that you're not communicating with someone. Moist Flap, you have more input. You have a lot of input. I'm happy to read it. Can you get a hug? Yeah, I'll make sure you get one. I feel like you are trolling me. How? I wasn't talking to you directly with anything I just said. We were talking about the general situation. I've also not paid any attention to this dungeon because I've been speaking entirely to you guys. By being positive and real, that is a wild take. So you think that what I've just said has been personally focused on you. I don't quite know how we got to that, but I'm happy. Hang on, yes. You think I'm personally trolling you. Okay. I don't think I am. Hang on, with joy bait, which is the opposite of rage bait. By generally trying to be positive, I'm making you angry. He was joking, Josh. Okay, gotcha. That doesn't translate well over chat. We want Moist Flap on voice. No way, definitely not. Because some of you will be like, oh, I was just joking. Have you seen what people are like in this chat? You have no idea whether someone is or isn't joking. Is this toxic positivity? Love that. Oh, love it a lot. Anyone who is in the stream often, do you feel that people are being worse today than they normally are? Do you feel there's more negativity, more trolling, more edgy humor today than normal? It's Saturday. It's the weekend. It's Saturday. It's the weekend. What does that mean? Does that mean that younger people are online? So the fact that younger people are online means that we get this kind of general behavior. Sparhawk says, I'm constantly in awe at the bullshit you deal with. This is just normal online stuff. This is what kids are like. But you have to understand this as well, guys. Think about this. I'm currently playing Classic WoW, the Burning Crusade Anniversary Edition. These are not regular school kids. These are normally mid to late 20s, early 30s, possibly late 30s. It's not like there's a load of teenagers in the chat because, you know, based on the nature of the game that I'm playing being an old game. This is what late 20s, early 30s adults are acting like. Just because somebody, however, has left high school does not mean that they are mentally anywhere different. You've probably attracted a larger WoW crowd at this point, and yeah, that's what's happened. There's no age limit on acting like a child. That is unfortunately true, and I think the online World of Warcraft vibe in general has definitely created a society or an online culture that allows that more immature nature to exist. The nature of online games does push itself ultimately into immaturity. Maybe your audience is role-playing the way they were in 2007. Maybe they are. I'm glad I'm not. WoW Classic community has a negative relationship with streamers. Vac, is that true? I actually don't know that. What are you doing? You do know that Crimson Desert is out, yeah? Keel, that's the first message you've ever sent in the chat. Are you paid by Crimson Desert to advertise? Or are you just incapable of going to someone who's already playing Crimson Desert? But again, the nature of any online connection is that people are comfortable behind a screen. People are comfortable behind a mask. And more human beings are driven by emotion than we like to admit. So if someone does like you, they will agree with everything you do. If someone doesn't like you, they will disagree with everything you do. Someone earlier said that I would just shit on any ideas that people bring to me. That's not true. I will pressure test ideas to see if they will stand up to scrutiny. Because if they can't stand up to me, they will definitely not stand up to an audience or an investor. People want to agree with people they like. Therefore, one of the most important things that you want to do in any kind of connection is make someone like you before you try and connect with them. Emotions are essential for decision making. They really are. Josh wants you to, I want you to justify your position about why I should be involved or why I should care. And the answer can't just be because you care. Emotions do make us all human, guys, and we all have them, and we all need to, you know, deal with them. You'll agree if you like, disagree if you don't like, and we'll only do both. And we'll do both only if you respect them. That's an interesting way of looking at it. But what you guys might notice is that a lot of people will come to this stream with a preconceived idea of who I am, how I'm going to treat them, what I value, and how they're going to treat me. You'll get people that join the stream with a more combative approach. You'll get people that join not in good faith. And when that happens, they don't want me to acknowledge or respect them. They want to argue with me. That's any stream, though. I wouldn't say it's any stream. Some people are willing to have a conversation. The complexity of that, of course, is people want to be argued with. People want that thing to be an argument. It's honestly stupid wasting your own time on negativity when you could be doing something nice or meaningful. Negativity itself, being negative about something, does not always mean shooting the idea down or destroying it. Sometimes it can be pressure testing it. Like if I say to someone, hey, let's prepare for the worst case scenario, and they're like, oh, stop being so negative. I'm like, no. We need to at least acknowledge and prepare for this. We can hope for the best. Josh's chat does seem more combative than other streamers I watch, but I don't think I watch any other streamers with a large audience. Roll, it might also be because the audience know that I'm going to try and respond to them as best I can. Someone said earlier that, why do I get one guide? And it's because pulling out one comment is the only way that you can have a conversation with one person. You get one guide because you're willing to have a conversation with one person. That's what it is. The complexity of that. Otherwise, you have to just treat chat as this big amorphous blob that you don't actually connect to. What do I personally get out of engaging with all the emotional immaturity online? Not that I necessarily disapprove. What I get out of it is the knowledge that what I am doing is entertaining. That's what I'm trying to do. And to me, having that one-to-one connection with someone matters. And like I mentioned earlier, people want attention because they either feel bad or they feel something. It matters to them in some way. Because if it didn't matter to them, they simply wouldn't have typed anything in the chat. They would have gone, I don't care, and then move on. The opposite of love is not hate. They're two sides of the same coin. The opposite of love is apathy, is not caring at all. People are in this chat asking questions because on some degree they care. Whether it's about the game, whether it's about me, whether it's about just getting some kind of focus, they care. So to me, engaging with someone that cares, even if it's starting with a basis of negativity, does at least give us a foundation of emotion to build off, which matters. Zevi, it does feel a bit worse than normal today so far. That's because it's the weekend and we're attracting a larger audience. And as you attract a larger audience, you're going to get more idiots. It's just going to happen. If it were me, I'd ban and move on. You do that, you create an echo chamber for yourself. I don't want people to feel that they don't have an immediate connection. I also don't want people to feel super comfortable in being arseholes. It's about finding that balance between it. It does feel that you invest proportionally more energy in negative comments than positive ones. Gatto, that's because positive ones don't normally lead to a discussion. They don't normally lead to me being able to learn anything. If I talk, I can only say what I know. But if I read and listen, I can learn what you guys know. And the problem with positive comments is, as great as they are, they tend to not lead to any new discussions. Echo chambers will stagnate. I mean, if people just keep saying, oh, I really like your video, what can I say? Oh, thanks, that's great. Agreeing with the situation is lovely, but we grow through, friction. We grow through pressure. We grow through analyzing and interrogating the ideas that we already have. So it's important to me to be able to try and interrogate that. We don't want to create toxic positivity. We don't want to create that at all. But at the same time, we also don't want to give too much negativity toward people that think differently to us. If someone has a negative opinion, that's fine, but I want to understand why. And I want to understand if it's something that I've done wrong that I can change, or something that they just genuinely hate. Josh, who's my favorite Prime Minister? They're all just so awful. Friction is necessary to grow. Could be negativity not targeted at me is totally fine. That's okay. Do I miss the Bonsai rap? Oh, Simon Bonsai. What a good lad. How often do I think that people like your content, write controversial comments because they like your entertainment when you talk about negativity? Dragonov, I try not to think about too much stuff at all in general. I've found that the less I think, the happier I am. What do I think of Scotland? Infrequently. I got a message on Discord from someone saying, hey Josh, just so you know, I am genuinely concerned about your mental health and think you should take a few days off streaming. And as kind as that is, tad condescending, because this is also the job. How can someone say that? People have the best intentions. People have good intentions, and I love that, and I respect that, and that's fine. But it is also a bit weird that people will say, hey, I've been watching your streams recently, I'm noticing a lot of negativity, I think that your mental health is suffering, I think you should stop streaming for a while. I don't think that, you know, the guy flipping burgers at McDonald's is going to be treated the same way with someone going, hey, you've been flipping a lot of burgers lately, and I've noticed that you're not super happy with this, so maybe you should take a few days off. People don't have that luxury. It's an absolutely incredible luxury to be able to just take time off from your job whenever you want it. But don't you have that luxury? Yes, I do. I absolutely do. I could take days off streaming or making YouTube videos and I would be fine. Which is, to my working class upbringing, utterly insane. Ridiculously insane. You had a thrilling time reading the YouTube comments. You are amazed at how unhinged they are. Oh, it gets better, doesn't it? It's just great. You know how to start a convo with positivity. Josh, do you like being so based? Honestly, I dislike the fact that people say whenever a thing is good, oh, based. And whenever a thing is bad, they're like, oh, you know, that's not based. That's cringe. That's just the longer version of W's and L's. I think that honestly, it worries me that online takes have been reduced down to based or not based, because that comes across as, again, it's almost like a barometer that the streamer has to chase. Communication is getting codified into good things and bad things, and that's kind of it. Bro loves using big words to make me feel small. Not at all. Not at all. If you ever are unsure of a word that I've used in the context I've used it, you can just ask. I will never ever mock anyone for that. Asking someone to explain something to you is one of the best ways to learn anything. And if I ever do say something that doesn't make any sense, ask me to explain it and I will. And you know what? If it doesn't make sense to me, I'll be like, you know what? Yeah, that was the wrong word. One of the things that I learned many years ago that I've tried to hold on to, and sometimes using longer words I think helps be specific with the situation. But I think one thing that I've always tried to hold on to, and it was a teacher of mine that said this to me many years ago, they said that the amateur will use very big words to explain very small concepts, whereas the master can use very small words to explain very big concepts. And that stuck with me. The idea that some people focus on sounding smart while not actually getting the information required across to the person who is asking for it. And other people focus on getting the information to the other person, even if they don't sound as smart themselves. And that's the important bit. Getting the information to the other person matters more than massaging your own ego to sound smart. So if I do ever use a word that you're like, what the hell does that mean? Honestly, just ask. Just totally ask and be like, hey man, what are you on about? What does that word mean in this context? That's fine. I'll try and answer. I'll try my best. There was a famous saying, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. And what that means is removing the surplus information, the stuff that is no longer required, actually results in less information being delivered, but the information that is delivered is condensed and focused and needed. Being precise is good, removes the filler. But whenever I'm talking on Twitch, I am using all of the filler because I haven't had time to cut it down. I can't do it live, if that makes sense. So as a songwriter, that is very true. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Sometimes some of the best, most impactful lyrics are the simplest. Sometimes what takes a huge amount of complex words to say is delivered in the most emotionally impactful way with fewer words. But complexity can also have a beauty all of its own. Sometimes overdone is underrated. You've started taking some time before answering, even if people think you're slow at times. That's one of the best things to do. Holding a silence is a sign of confidence. Holding a silence is difficult. But we have definitely had people today that I think approached with negativity. Good communication does involve adding pauses, adding cadence to the speech, up and down like a roller coaster. It really does. Can I ask your opinion on in-game voice chat in dungeons? In-game voice chat in any game is a danger, because you are effectively allowing people that you have no idea about to chat to you. They might be fine people, they might be weird people. Who knows? No, we sold them, sorry. They've already been sold. This bag is becoming a cloth bag.
Safe travels.
Thank you, Theodun, for running up to me in-game and simply saying, "You're fatter in person, bye." That's a weird thing to do. Sometimes people wonder why I struggle to connect with the World of Warcraft community, and I think that's just kind of... Yeah, the longer I spend interacting with you guys, the more I realize why every other MMORPG started to pull away. Why have we attracted so many weirdos? This didn't happen 2 weeks ago. Bree, that's a good question. I think the fact that we're putting up more World of Warcraft content on the JoshStrifeHayes channel is, of course, allowing more of the general terminally online World of Warcraft community to be exposed to the videos. And it's also Saturday, which means you're going to get a lot more people who are not at school. It is, unfortunately, a combination of people who are going to sit on Twitch during the weekend and people who are socially inept or people who have not emotionally matured. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, but I am definitely thinking that the World of Warcraft community, especially the terminally online aspect of it, is remarkably socially challenged. Most people do seem to be normal. Unfortunately, you do get the couple of people who stand out from it. But that's just like saying that if you go to a restaurant and order a 5-course meal, even if there's a really small bit of shit in one of the meals, it's still going to taint the rest of the experience around it. And when you tell people about your experience in that restaurant, you're not going to say, yeah, it was great. It was only a small bit of shit on the plate. You're going to say, unfortunately, I think that was the main focus that we're going to have. Twitch streamers, YouTubers, micro-internet celebrities, however you want to see them, will cultivate a fan base that treat them in one way or another. Unfortunately, the larger a fan base grows of anyone, the higher the chance becomes that there are going to be some very unhinged people within that fan base, simply by the law of large numbers. Do I have any tips on how to teach people with attention disorders? I'm tutoring 2 kids and keeping their attention is impossible. Gamifying the lessons works only half the time. At some point, you need to expect people to say, hey, your attention has to be onto this. Teachers do take a lot of responsibility on for how a student reacts and responds, but it is also a level of the student. And mostly it's a level of the parents. If a teacher spends a couple of hours a week with a student, they still do not see the student anywhere near as much as the parent sees the student. So it's also the responsibility of the parent to explain to the child that sometimes they will need to focus on stuff. If you gamify everything, you're explaining to someone that absolutely every interaction, every situation will have a fun, positive outcome. Dealing with the boredom and dealing with a situation that necessarily isn't fun to deal with is something vital to learn. If you can't learn that, you're in trouble. I'm sure a lot of you in this chat will understand that some situations in life just require you to deal with them. He did not read what I wrote, Sag. Alan, let me scroll back up. Problem is, these soldiers of a certain persona or ideas is they feel they're part of something bigger than themselves, and as such, they can lose accountability for their actions and the consequences. Yes, they do. They feel that they're doing something in the name of somebody else. Do you also get the irony that you wrote that and then you followed it up with, he didn't read what I wrote, Sag? The extreme irony of writing something about the fact that people feel connected to a streamer as bigger than themselves and then complaining about the fact or noting that the streamer did not read it. Oh, beautiful, beautiful irony. We love it. We love to see it. Practicing controlled boredom is important. Kids need to be able to be bored because I guarantee that you'll be bored as an adult. You can often tell when you're working with someone who has the ability to be bored and comfortable with their own company. Isn't really a thing with the youth these days, what, being bored? It's very important to be able to be bored. It is a skill. The ability to make doing nothing interesting is, of course, a challenge. They call it raw dog in life. Yeah, people just say, oh, you're gonna raw dog life. Just go for it. Just do the things. Alright, cool. At some point, you do have to be okay being bored with stuff. Why is boredom important, though? It teaches you that not every moment is going to be about activating the dopamine receptors, and not every moment is going to be about relying on external stimuli in order to cultivate either interest or focus or even self-acceptance. The reason that we say boredom is important is because when you are uncomfortable with being bored, one of the first things people try to do is find a way to alleviate that boredom with external stimuli. There must be a noise happening, there must be a visual happening, there must be something that distracts the brain. And what you're doing then is you are putting the responsibility of being in the moment onto something outside of yourself. And when you begin to consistently lose the authority for your own interests and your own life by constantly giving that power to something or someone else, you are starting the process of becoming a passive observer of your own life, instead of the process of being an active participant in whatever you want to be doing at the time. And becoming a passive observer of your own life means that ultimately you become uncomfortable sitting with yourself. And if you are uncomfortable with a situation and your very first thought is, I am going to alleviate what I'm feeling by seceding control of my focus to something else, you're ultimately cultivating a situation where anytime you are forced to self-reflect, you will then just willingly divert that to someone else. Is that good or bad? It just is. If someone is bored and they demand to be entertained, they are taking the process of finding interest and finding fun and finding beauty within this world and outsourcing it. Instead of looking for it, understanding it, noticing it, feeling it, or wanting to find it. You are outsourcing the process of living your own life to something that will say, hey, your limited time on this planet is worth whatever I've created. Your time is very limited. I want to take it away and entertain you. I know that I make jokes about wanting to alleviate the boredom and not have you guys have to think too much, but all the jokes are based on a kernel of truth. And everyone will jump back with a reason why they can't do it. People will jump back and say, oh, but what about ADHD? Oh, but what about autism? Oh, but what about this specific disorder that makes it difficult to focus? Yes, every person does need to deal with things in their own way, and every person does need varying levels of support. That's why equity is often more useful than equality when it comes to working out how an individual can focus on a specific thing. But we still do need to contend with the fact that it is beneficial to be able to be bored and deal with that, because you are giving the child a skill, because they're going to be bored in life a lot. There will be moments where you are bored and suddenly realize that you've come up with a solution to something. Dealing with frustration. How many of you have ever had to deal with someone who is incapable of being bored? They always must be distracted. They always must have a focus. They always have to have something going on. They cannot possibly exist within quiet contemplation. And be honest, are those people insufferable to deal with? Because unfortunately, they normally are. Sometimes the way that you feel comfortable with someone is knowing that you can just sit in a room and do nothing and not have to feel the responsibility of entertaining them. So when you say, how do you get a kid to pay attention to something? Unfortunately, you as an individual don't. The situation that child grows up in and learns to accept and the problems they learn to deal with, that's going to help them. It is a process. Learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable silences. Learning how to process information that you do not enjoy processing. I don't mean stuff that's traumatic, I mean stuff that you don't look at and go, oh, this is fun. That is itself a skill. It is not cultivated because it is easier to simply allow someone to be distracted. And if you think trying to teach someone to be that way is difficult, I guarantee that dealing with them when they're an adult is even more difficult. When I say those people are constantly insufferable who have to have a focus going on all the time, I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm saying that if you have an interaction with someone and that interaction with that someone is tainted or marred by the fact that they must always have something else going on, it can become quite overwhelming to have to deal with constantly. I absolutely do not mind people who do better when they have a distraction or a focus. That's fine. But when you are being asked to interact with someone consistently who needs to place their own need for constant stimulation over your need for connection, it's just draining to be around. It puts pressure on you to almost paint every interaction with them with the brush of "this is entertaining." Don't worry, I know what I've got to say is quite dull and quite boring, but I will placate your need for constant stimulation. And that to me is just really bloody draining after a while. A collab account with Dr. K. I like Dr. K. Me and him have... I don't think I've spoken with Dr. K. I think I've spoken with his team briefly. Just because of stuff that we've chatted about before. He seems like a nice guy. Want to turn off the stream and go outside? Good, do it. Have I watched Pirate Software talk to Dr. K? Yes, I have. I thought that was an interesting one. I thought there were two very interesting perspectives put together, and psychology is fascinating. Do it. If you're at this stream right now thinking, hey, you'd rather be outside, please do that. I will actively encourage you to go and do that. I think one of the most draining things that I experience while interacting with people is whenever I talk in general stuff and people want to bring in specifics, and then you talk in specifics and people bring in general. I'm like, we have to remember what we're focusing on with the conversation. If we're talking about general behavior, then it's difficult when someone brings in specifics that relate to them. And when we're talking about specific behavior that relate to them, it's then difficult that people bring in general behavior. And you'll notice that people often do this as a way to counteract whatever point is currently being given. Because in their mind, maybe they are raising an important point that needs to be considered, but what it tends to actually end up being is relatively derailing to the conversation. And I don't mind people bringing up stuff that is relevant. That's good. We want people to bring up stuff that's relevant. What we don't want people to think or feel is the need to defend. Because if I'm discussing something that affects you, I'm not attacking you. There's stuff that affects me as well, and I don't feel attacked by it unless someone specifically comes out to attack me. Like if someone comes up and says, hey, I disagree with your opinion on this, that's totally fine. If someone comes up and goes like, you're wrong, lol, it's the energy that you approach a conversation with that also has a huge effect on it. And I think, unfortunately, I have no problem spending all day with people who disagree with me. That's fine. As long as that disagreement is approached with a level of respect. Totally okay. The problem is that Twitch and YouTube comments are the majority of how I interact with people who enjoy my content. And those are not exactly systems that are beneficial to an understanding level of respect. That was a big pull, but we did fine. We did totally A-okay there. Like, I want to be able to interact with lots of people. But at the same time, when you interact with more people, you simply interact with more shitty people. People feel the instincts to protect themselves against things I say. Okay, but I'm not attacking that person. But I can understand why people would respond that way. And that's why streamers and content creators do it. When a streamer and content creator opens themselves up for genuine feedback, the vast majority of the feedback is, honestly, bad feedback. To loop this back round to chatting online in general, being willing to accept feedback from one person places you into a position of vulnerability with that one person. And it is often said that you should not take feedback from people that you would not go to for criticism. Or, to rephrase that, you should not take criticism from people you would not go to for advice. Deciding who you are willing to take feedback from is very important. Despite the level of focus and care, the weight that you give to that feedback and that input, of course, matters. Now, the more people observe your work, the more people can contact you, and the more people offer unsolicited input. We often say that unsolicited advice is criticism. So it's very important that you are able to mentally disassociate actual actionable critique from emotional criticism and input. The thing is that I don't want to ever feel that I am losing the connection to people that enjoy my work. You guys. And one of the things that I will do to make sure that stays is always do my best to focus on listening to input and listening to feedback. Are you talking about people talking at people instead of with people? Just say that is a great way of putting it. So to connect this in, I don't want you guys to feel that I'm ignoring you or treating you as a simple faceless monolith. It's very important that if people want to give input and advice, I'll listen to it. But at the same time, I kind of need to curate what is worth the time to focus on and what is an emotional outburst. It's difficult to talk with someone when you're in a crowd of 2,000 people, so they might feel their only recourse is to talk at you, not with you. Fiddlesworth, I completely agree. And I think that is something that Twitch suffers with as a platform. I think that is definitely something that Twitch suffers with. And I think it's been something that people have become accustomed to. If you spent the amount of time on every chat message, you would lose your mind. Valor, I completely agree, which is why, again, it's my job to kind of filter through the noise and find the messages that I think I can engage with, whether those are positive or negative. You got to be the filter. It's very mentally draining. Oh, Seth said it before I did. There we go. And I think that the difference between a lot of Twitch streams is my approach I'm trying to keep as personal as possible. I mean, you're only human. Your chat interaction is impressive. Thank you, Moist. I appreciate that. That's kind of you to say. What I'm trying to do is keep the interaction human and direct while also focusing at least on the game if I can. Leia Maria says, as soon as a stream has more than 200 viewers, you change your mindset to assume the streamer will not read my message. They might not. It ends up is, I think, and again, correct me if you disagree with this, I think quite a few larger streamers have almost conditioned their chat to behave as a monolith, as a groupthink, a Borg, a hive mind, which means when they respond to the chat, it almost becomes streamer versus chat. You almost have two entities. You have the streamer, and then you have the chat as this homogeneous blob of voices. And one of the reasons that a lot of the larger streamers do that is it becomes easier, because then in your mind, you're actually only interacting with one person, a person whom is collectively represented by the desires of the chat. Which is why you say, chat, are we cooked? Chat, is this, that, the other? Chat, what do we think? When a streamer says, chat, what do we think? They're not asking each individual person for their input. They're asking the collective blob of hive mind chat to give them an answer. And the answer that they give, they will simply kind of collate into focused data and go with that. It's like chat becomes an elected representative of itself, in a way. When you have 50,000 viewers, it's actually impossible to engage with chat at all. Savory, yeah, spot on. That's absolutely spot on. Will I ever have that? I don't know. Am I building toward that? Not sure. I think 2,000 is a good number that I'm able to deal with, while at the same time gives us a sizable and stable community that is definitely possible to turn into a career. Look at how some streamers tribalize their chat by calling them things like an army. Yeah, absolutely. But I still want to be able to call out individual messages and understand that individual people have individual ideas. But I think that there's a lot of chatters or a lot of new viewers within this chat right now, sitting at their computer watching or watching on your phone, however you're doing it, who still, they approach it as if I won't see them as an individual person, and therefore they approach it as if I'm not seen as an individual person. What do we think about the chat right now? Are we a single entity? Crit, you can ask chat. Josh, are we still whimsy maxing? No, I'd say that we're currently doom maxing and philosophy pilled. You do this naturally without realizing if you're hesitant to type it. One person will become the voice. Yes, they will. One person does often end up becoming the voice of an idea, and normally it's the streamer that becomes the voice of the chat, which is why the chat want to find a streamer that always agree with them. You're new, Wiley. You can be here for a few minutes and still get the vibe of what's going on. If I write something in chat and it doesn't get picked up, I just assume the comment wasn't interesting enough. That's entirely not true, Albardo. Normally you can write really interesting stuff and it just scrolls past too fast. There will also be times when I'm focusing on the game and I'm unable to keep up with the chat. Twitch chatters are the tyrannids. If there aren't that many, you can see individuals. If there's enough, you have the swarm. Yes, that's a way of looking at it. Overall, I feel you have a pretty balanced take when it comes to curating the message of the stream and ensuring things aren't taken out of context. Sometimes it can feel like it takes too much focus away from the gameplay. The gameplay was never the focus of this stream. It never has been. It might be at some point my fault for the whole wanting to be able to feel a level of connection towards you guys as individuals. And maybe it's just that people who tend to watch larger Twitch streams, which this is slowly becoming, aren't used to being replied to as an individual. That might be what it is. It might just straight up be being replied to as an individual ends up being intimidating. When you are the streamer address an individual comment, every viewer is then having attention, which is intimidating. Public speaking confidence to ratio. Rev, again, that's a great point. But at what point, if someone makes a comment online, let's say that a streamer has 2,000 viewers, which this stream currently has. If someone makes a comment online and I read that and I call that out, is that me being inappropriate to then focus the attention onto that comment? If the person is willing to leave the comment and have me read it, surely they would then want me to be able to call it out. Also, I need to leave the place this way. We'll find somebody else if you guys want to continue doing dungeons. Because some people don't like the attention. I've had it before where someone has made a comment, I have mentioned it and called it out, and the first thing they've done is left. Only if you feel responsible for what your audience might do in response to that attention. Set, if you don't feel responsible for what your audience might do, I would say you're acting relatively irresponsibly as a creator. And I don't mean that you have to take responsibility for what the audience might do. I say that you have to at least consider it. If someone goes to do something stupid in my name, I will not take responsibility for that because I didn't tell them to or ask them to or want them to. But if I put a work or an idea out into the world, I have to at least, before I do that, think, right, do I have a responsibility to not do this? That's always a question you have to ask yourself at some point. When you have a larger kind of viewer base, and yeah, not disagreeing with the take doesn't mean you're attacking the person. What do I think about the gamification of every peripheral associated with video games? How so? Could you give me an example of that? I think you're overthinking this, bro. Lamau, it's a 20-year-old video game. Hydro Katana 99. We're not talking about WoW specifically. We're talking in general right now about the kind of psychology of the human condition while playing a 20-year-old video game in the background. If you just want me to focus on WoW, I'm sorry, but this is not the stream for that. I'm playing WoW, but I'm absolutely not focusing on it. I also think it's whenever someone says it's not that deep, while I understand, and you know what, sometimes I even completely agree, it often has the energy, and if you guys disagree with me, feel free to disagree, but it has the energy of stop thinking about this. You're wasting your time thinking deeply. It feels like it's dismissive to the intellectual journey that you're attempting to go on. Just because somebody else doesn't think that what you're focusing on is worth the time that you're dedicating to focus on it. At least that's the way it comes across to me. Like, if something matters to someone, most things are only surface level deep and don't actually have a deeper meaning. Most people forget things like this easily. I mean, Katana, that's an interesting way of putting it, but sometimes the thing itself is not what you're discussing as much as it is the societal or cultural impact that the thing can lead you to discuss. I would take any group of any size, of any age, and I would give them a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. And I would say, I would like you to create a piece of drama, a piece of artwork, a short play, poem, spoken word, performance, whatever you like, inspired by this piece of paper. And they would say to me, what, do you mean, like, you want me to make something about the piece of paper? And I would say, no, inspired by. And they would say, what does that mean? And I would say, okay. What are you looking at? What is this? And they would go, it's a piece of paper. And I go, okay, cool. Be more specific. Exactly what are you looking at? And they would say, what do you mean it's a piece of paper? I would say, no, describe it to me. They would say, it's a piece of white paper. I'm like, okay, no, describe it to me again. And they'd go, it's a white rectangle. I'm like, okay. And now, where did it come from? They go, well, I don't know, the shop. No, be more specific, where did it come from? And they were like, it's paper, so it's a tree. Okay, cool. So when you look at that, what you see as a piece of paper, what we actually have already is color, shape, size, location, origin, idea. What do you do with it? They're like, you write on it. Okay, what is that? What is the process of writing? And like a story, like a diary. Okay, so this is a thing that can hold a story. This is a thing that can hold a diary. This is a thing that represents the container of knowledge with something else. And people might think, oh my God, this is so incredibly pretentious. But when we say pretentious, we can sometimes mean ascribing significance to stuff which isn't there. We don't necessarily mean we are trying to find a process of thought inspired by something. So if I give you a piece of paper and say, make me something inspired by this, I don't mean make me a thing based on a piece of paper. I mean consider what this paper means. Where did it come from? What does that mean? What kind of journey has that gone on? What's it going to be in the future? Can it hold a limited amount of knowledge? Is it an unlimited amount of knowledge? Now, sometimes a piece of paper is indeed, Mike, just a piece of paper. I get what you're saying with that. But the purpose of this lesson is to explain to people that something that isn't itself deep can be used as the nucleus point to grow something deep around. That's the idea. You don't need to look at something and say, this isn't that deep. You can look at something and say, I can think about this as deeply as I want to think about this. And the purpose of that lesson was to try and teach someone what deep thinking about something means. It does not mean taking something at face value. It means saying, where does this make my mind go to? Your mind is far more powerful than you think it will be. Far more powerful. And people limit themselves when they say stuff like, it's not that deep. Because what they're saying to themselves is, there is nothing worth thinking about with this. When you look at something and say, there is something worth thinking about with this, that's fine. Now, I'm not going to apply critical thinking to everything. I'm not going to start picking up a cup and going, what does this cup mean? Where did it come from? Where is it going to? But what it can mean is when I need to think of a solution to something or think through a problem, that solution can come from a weird part. You need to have the ability to turn it on and off, of course. You can be as deep or as shallow as you want to be with something, but often I've found the people that say it's not that deep to you are often finding a way to say, I don't think it's that deep, and I think what you are doing right now is silly and stupid and embarrassing. People find, and I hate this, we seem to have cultivated a society where there is a great deal of respect and admiration within anti-intellectualism. People want to be proud of being ignorant. People want to be rewarded for being dumb. Now, there's nothing wrong with not having all the information. There's nothing wrong with not being as informed on something as somebody else is. But when that lack of information, when that lack of understanding is treated as a badge of honor instead of a process that you could go through to improve, that's where you start to get people mocking those who try. And when you have a society that mocks those who try or laughs at those who want to think, you are only left with people who will not try and will not think. And I think, unfortunately, we are seeing that more and more. And I think we've seen some of it today, to be fair. Have any of you ever met someone that you think, how the hell have you done any of this? You are not thinking and you are not trying. Do you have higher education? You seem like you have schooling in philosophy or religion. I'm university educated and I was a teacher for a while. Nothing specifically within philosophy or religion, although those subjects are touched on briefly within performance, because a lot of theatre and a lot of performing arts shares a huge amount in common with philosophy and religion in general. You had this conversation with your father last night. While you understand and respect that we should give time to listen to people who struggle and understand the concept of thinking deeper, it's hard for you to do that personally. You cannot understand how people choose not to think or are incapable of it. I don't know the battles that other people are going through. I don't know the struggles that other people have got. They don't know the struggles that I've got, because there's a level of privacy between any two human beings. So I try to remind myself that I don't know what people's backgrounds are, and I don't know what people are going through. And you may be struggling with stuff that I'm not struggling with. It might be the opposite way around. But if someone comes and starts mocking, what I've often found, and you can correct me if you think differently, when someone mocks somebody else for thinking deeply, it often comes from the fact that they themselves have been mocked for thinking deeply. And it sometimes germinates and grows into an attitude of almost defense, where in order to protect themselves from the shitty feeling of being mocked, they then do it to other people. Because that's what they've been shown you should do. If a child comes to you with interest and fascination in a certain subject, and you just mock that subject, you are teaching that child showing interest is worthy of mockery. Which means when someone else shows interest in something, that child thinks, you know what I should do? I should mock them. Which means you are then raising someone who is potentially being held back from their own interests because they fear a level of retaliation to it. So when someone says something that I see as, directly attacking or trying to cause offense or trying to push back, maybe it is the years teaching, but sometimes I do just see a scared little kid who really wishes that they could engage with something in a way that they think is cool and interesting, that they were prevented from doing in the past. And that genuinely makes me really sad. Now, I'm not saying that. Eye of Cthulhu, great thing. Eye of Cthulhu has just said, I'm not sure I agree with that. I was mocked in the past and I don't do it to other people. This is not a direct, linear correlation. This is not, if you have experienced this, you will be this. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that people who act within this way often have a background which is built around these kind of circumstances. So if you have been able to push through the negativity of being mocked and being bullied and being, having the piss taken out of you and being pushed back against, and still manage to keep your kindness and your whimsy with that, then great. But if you have seen all of that negative pushback congeal into insecurity that expresses itself as doing that to others, that's where I hope that people can listen to this and maybe think, you know what, yeah, it sucked when someone did that to me, but I don't want to do that to somebody else now. Of course not, you're just telling me your experience. I appreciate that. Has it always been like that, or do you just naturally pay more attention to societal phenomenon like this? It depends how much attention you had available to be free, because we don't always have a huge amount of, mental focus and mental freedom to do that stuff. If there is ever a stream bingo card, Josh goes on a minor philosophical debate against one or two viewers should be the free space. Yeah, absolutely. Hey Josh, randomly came across your YouTube video where you were a bartender giving out advice that was worth... Oh yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed it and was wondering what the chances were for another session. Honestly, you've just missed one for like 4 hours. Thank you for showing me there are still decent internet personalities around. I'm an absolutely average guy. There are people way better than me. I guess that's why it's sometimes... I guess that's why I push back sometimes. When I see someone in the chat make a comment like, it's not that deep, bro. It's not that it irritates me, it's that I know there will be someone in the chat who wants to think deeply about stuff. And when they read that comment, it's not that deep, bro, they will feel minimized. They will feel reduced. They will feel that their interest and their focus and their intellectual curiosity with that has been belittled. And I don't like thinking that. I don't like thinking that one or two people in the chat will read the comments, will feel the vibe and think, well, you know what, in order to protect myself, I'm not going to engage with that because I don't want to be the focus. It's comments that can prevent growth, which I don't like. So I try to push back against comments that prevent growth. I mean, most people are just, content to sit there and watch. Anima, I agree. Most people are content to just sit, watch, listen, engage. And I've often said that I don't want to just start reacting to give the chat whatever the chat wants. First of all, treating the chat as a monolith, and secondly, just looking at the W's and L's and thinking about whether I'm saying the right thing or not. I would rather try and engage with people on at least a fair level and hope people feel, if not completely listened to, at least seen. Any tips to be a deep thinker instead of an overthinker? That's a really, really nice way of putting that. What would you think, guys? What is the difference between deep thinking and overthinking? I think overthinking would be when you get caught in a mental loop inside your own head and you are trying to find what effectively will become a different answer to what you're currently giving yourself, which is generally unhelpful. It's almost like going over the same thing again and again and again, but not changing where the results are going to go. Whereas deep thinking is about working out the doors that are being opened in the process of thinking, and then working out where those doors go to. Overthinking is knowing something and looping over and over again, trying to find a new answer or validate a wrong answer. Deep thinking is exploring the process. That's a great way of putting that. I like that a lot. It's okay to consider an idea without necessarily resolving it as well. That's an interesting way of thinking about it. So this quest is not going to get me any experience, but I think will at some point unlock a better quest. As this stream grows, as it gets exposed to a larger audience from the JoshStrifeHayes channel uploading clips of it, as I just play more games and do more stuff, we will get more people wanting to be involved who don't want to think about stuff and just want to be told what to think, just want validation, confirmation bias. They just want to have a streamer friend who agrees with them and tells them they're always right. That will happen. And I'm not comfortable doing that or being that. So we're always going to keep having these conversations. And people might message me saying they're getting fed up and bored of the conversations. People might message me saying that they're getting irritated with it. And again, I think this comes back to teaching. Imagine that you are a teacher and that you have to teach a class of students a module. And then the next month, you teach another class the same module. And then another month, another class, the same module. You as a teacher are going to think, oh my God, I'm so bored of this module. If you were an observer watching that module being taught, after 3 or 4 months, you might be bored of the module as well. But for the people that are in the class, it's the first time they've seen it. So it's sometimes important to those people, which is why these conversations sometimes loop and sometimes happen again. It is a literal loop as well. Your mental health wouldn't survive. There's a reason there's a massive burnout in education. Isn't that just teaching as a job? Yes. Yes, it is. You always told the teacher it's boring, teach something else. You were the one the teacher didn't like. Strange to try and shift someone's content when there is so much other places that could be entertained. Oh yeah, absolutely. I will rather, focus on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. WoW is literally a full-time job. You know what? I'm wearing the helmet, I'm wearing the axe, I'm wearing the cape, I'm wearing the legs, I'm wearing everything. And someone said to me, oh my God, I can't believe you got all the items. And my first reaction was, it was quite easy, really. And then my following reaction was, all you have to do is play for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have thousands of people willing to help you. I'm like, that's why it's easier. That's the advantage that I've got. Watching your content, but stuck in the hospital. Oh, Twitty, thank you very much. Hopefully that situation resolves itself for you and you end up doing okay. Yeah, sometimes even I have to remind myself the only reason that I've got everything is that I know enough people to be able to help myself get everything. I don't have the tabard yet, no. And maybe do a sneaky dungeon or 2 off stream. Of course, every now and again I'll just do a dungeon run off stream. Because it's nice to be able to just zone out and play some stuff for a bit. Because, it's not that deep. There's the joke. There's the joke. The only reason that WoW is easy for me is because I'm able to dedicate 8 hours a day to doing it and have thousands of people help me do it. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have 1/10 of the stuff that I've got in the game. The Union is genuinely really friendly, though. I'm being able to gear up in dungeons with guild groups. That is good. I actually got a message from a friend of mine, a guy that works for Jagex, and he ended up saying, hey man, I didn't even know the Union was your guild. I just ended up playing Classic WoW, joined the Union, and people kept mentioning you. And it turns out it was a guy at Jagex that I've met and worked with before. So we're healing. We're healing the world, guys. It's cultural connection. That's what it is. I have to be honest, I really enjoy that you are having fun with a game that some of us dedicated much of our time to. Yeah, I'm never going to have the same experience that you had in WoW. But I'm going to have my own experience, and my own experience involves you.
I think we need to have a little chat. I've discovered the internet. That's not the end of the sentence, there's more. I've discovered the internet can be a little bit negative. And I've discovered that arguing with people on the internet is like wrestling a pig. You both get covered in shit, but the pig likes it. And so what I've decided to do is, in a phrase, give up. I realized that attempting to discuss anything with anyone online is effectively fighting the tide, stabbing the ocean. That's what we would be doing. So instead, I think the plan is to just play World of Warcraft and agree with anything anyone says. I am feeling better. Thank you. Yesterday, I came down with a really bad earache halfway through for some reason. Like an hour into the stream, I started getting a headache, and I thought this is either going to go well or go badly. And about an hour later, the 2-hour point, my ear just started absolutely throbbing. And I'm like, if it's earache, man, I'm not dealing with that. I'm going to go to bed. So I turned the stream off straight away, grabbed myself a hot cup of tea, and just immediately jumped into bed. I'm like, I'm not playing with earache. You know, this ain't fun. Yeah, that was the plan. Exactly. Fighting a pig like in Black Mirror. You know, random fact, Quentin, that Black Mirror episode where the Prime Minister fucks the pig was actually filmed in the drama studio where I went to university.